Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of If This Canvas Could Talk. And I'm going to let a few people get on, but welcome. Happy to be here. I'm going to connect to my friend. Oh, hi, Allie. Yay, you're here. Welcome to episode 10 of If This Canvas Could Talk. And I'm so happy you're here with us. Now we just have to wait for Miss Terry to come on. But we are going to talk about expectations and what happens when we put expectations on ourselves. And let's see if my friend is on. There she is.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. We are episode 10.
Wow.
I know. Isn't this exciting?
Yeah, super exciting. I
Wow.
can't believe it feels like we should be so much further along than 10 almost because it's so, it's 2 weeks in between each one. So it feels like the time has been longer than 10, but yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Richard O'Malley. Thanks for joining us. I'm so excited to have you guys here. Brian Ratto. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Hi,
Allie.
Allie.
I know. 10 episodes. We're so excited. Yay. Okay, well, because we had some goals that we were setting for ourselves and kind of expectations. I know Terry can talk to you guys a little bit about she's applying to be in a show. And, I struggle a little bit with always thinking I should be further along than I am. So it's like for us, how we set those expectations for ourselves versus setting goals. Goals is one thing that you could check off that it's a task that you complete. But with expectations, I know when I'm doing my artwork, if I am too holding on to what the result is going to be versus letting it go, it never turns out the way I think it's going to turn out. So it's much better if you don't have the expectations. So we just thought that was a good subject that all of us deal with on a daily basis. And we thought maybe that's a good one to talk about today.
100%. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes that we could go down in that one subject, but I agree with you. If we start with the expectation of what we put on our art when we begin it, like, whatever, if for us, it's a painting, but for other people out there, whatever your creative outlet is, whatever you're starting with, you have this intention of what we think that it's going to be like, or what it's going to be at the end of when we're done creating it. And I can tell you that there's not been one single time, not one, that it's turned out the way that I thought that it was going to. And that doesn't
It's
mean
so
that I
true.
don't love the ones that turned out, but there's a lot more of them that don't turn out like anything at all, like not even worthy of showing other than, hey, didn't turn out, than ones that turn out great. And it's just, for me, you can say how you deal with it, but how I deal with that, I always just try to keep coming back to the whole purpose of me starting an art journey was so that I could have joy. And so as long as the process of making it, there has to be more joy in the process than there is in the outcome.
Correct.
Because if not, all I'm going to do is be upset and frustrated, the whole entire time, the whole time. How about you?
Exactly. Exactly. Amy just joined us too. So hi, Amy. Thanks for joining us. I completely agree. And I feel like the expectation, if you do have an expectation, that's why I think both you and I are not big fans of commissions, even though that's a good source of income. I get so much more pressure on myself on how it's going to turn out
Yes.
that it stresses me out. And I think that's part of it. And then it's not so fun anymore because you're too worried about what the result is going to be. And that's only because you
Yeah.
want to do a good job for somebody. But the best time, like you said, when I have the most fun and when I'm painting and you're in that zone and you're not even thinking about what's happening or where you're going to end up, is because I don't have those expectations put on it.
Absolutely.
So what is your advice for me, Miss Terry, in the fact that I feel like a lot of times I should be further along than I am? Like, why do I feel that way?
Well, I struggle with that too. I mean, and then so my advice is that, well, we have to be able to temper, looking at artists that are further along than us as inspiration and being very careful not starting to compare ourselves to them because they probably are a lot further along than we are. One, in just the time that they've been doing it,
Right.
and there's a lot of factors that go into where they are versus where we are that we may not be privy to that information. And
Right.
so it's just like when you're comparing your life to someone else's on Instagram, you're catching the highlight reels.
Yeah.
You're catching the best moments. Like I'm going to release a video here in the next week of me painting, and literally it was like a 30-minute video that I've crunched down to 30 seconds. And
Yeah.
so you don't see all of the other stuff in between that, we're comparing ourselves to these people, but as far as where we're supposed to be or where you're supposed to be, and we're not supposed to be there, or we'd be there.
Right. Right. I know it's just hard when you're in that moment, and I just keep thinking about it. But I also realize that you don't know, like you said, you don't know what the background is on that person, how long they've been doing it, how many connections they have, what classes they've taken, what they've paid for, what connections they've gotten through those things. And I get so worried about that. And I think it's because I set high expectations for myself. But
Yes.
every time I do that, it does take the joy out of it. And so, like you said at the beginning, we have to remember we're doing art because it brings us joy and we want to spread that joy out there. So every time I set an expectations of how I expect something to be and end up, or where I expect myself to be, then I get stressed out. And
Yes.
that's what we did in our previous careers.
Right. Right.
This is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be something that we don't want to get stressed out about. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be times. So talk to me a little bit about your applying for your being in that show, because that was a big kind of expectation for you too.
And it still is, and I'm still trying to tamp that down and remember what the ultimate goal is, right? So I just sent it off on Monday. I applied for a large art fair out here, the Best of the Northwest, and it's going to be in the Seattle Design Center. So the opportunity for me, I'm looking at it as a way to just get in front of and meet designers that are looking for art to put in homes of, that they're designing for their clients. And what I learned is that in the beginning it was super fun because I was starting it and I had this idea that I'm going to do it, and I actually was painting a few other paintings before I really got focused on creating. I needed enough art to set up a booth because I had to do my first booth shot and send it into them. And what I realized was once I started painting to have things to put in my booth, the joy started to leave the further I got and the closer that I got to the deadline that I had to be done. And I didn't realize it in the moment, but just yesterday, because now all the pressure is off because it's done, it's out of my hands, right?
Okay.
I started to realize, like, oh, you started to paint for what you thought the jury selection would want, instead of just painting to see what happens, and that's where I have the most fun. So it's then going back to remembering, okay, so the next time I decide I want to set a goal and go for something, I have to maybe even write it down and like look at that every day. You know, I remember in my old career, we did goal posters and we had them up, you know. So now maybe our goal posters could just be like, remember that you're just looking for joy. You know, remember the purpose of all of this is that you're just having fun and it's something that makes you happy. And who cares? Who cares what the outcome is past that? But it's
Right.
hard to do.
I know, because we know that that would be an awesome opportunity to be there and to have your art seen by all those designers. So that's part of it too, because I'm with you in that I want you to get in because I want you to get that and be able to get that exposure. But I also am looking at all that you have done to get ready for this. So
Yeah.
you had to set up a booth, you had to figure all of that stuff out, you had to put your entry in, all that stuff that you haven't done before.
I've never
So
done a booth. Like, what is it? Like, I've learned
yeah,
from you with your booth, but there was a moment. So, this is the 100% example of what we're talking about. So, it's comparison and, you know, at the outcome not being what you think that it's going to be. So, the
or
booth
want it to
part of
be.
it. So, I didn't know how to do a booth. I don't know how to do a booth photo. And so, I've never even done an art fair before. So, I don't have a booth. I had to buy one, all of this stuff. And this is a total side note. I can see why so many artists struggle with getting themselves out there because there is a cost that you
Right.
have to have the funds in order to do these things, in order to be taken serious, in order to get your work out in front of people. It's just, that's another, we should write that down for another whole
Okay.
subject to talk about.
Okay.
But I went down the rabbit hole of looking at what they had examples of what the booth shot should look like. And then I Googled booth shots and I saw a bazillion pictures, right? And most of them were more established and they had the pro panel walls.
Right.
And those are super expensive, beautiful. They look so professional. They look fabulous. And so here's my little tent that's like these nylon walls that have all
Yep.
these wrinkles and, you
That's what
know,
mine is.
yes,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Totally.
And so I set it all up, and in my mind, I was picturing that it was going to look like the pro panels, and it did not. And I stood out in my backyard, and the tears of frustration started to flow because I was like, this isn't what I thought it was going to look like. And I was comparing myself to people who are further along in their journey. And Tony came out, and he just put his arm around me, and he said, okay. But can we just for a second stand here and look at the fact that you have a tent set up with all of your art, and 2 years
Right.
ago, you didn't even know you could paint one single thing. And so he had to
Right.
bring me back into that moment of like, okay, you're right. It's about the joy, but that comparison will steal your joy every single time in a heartbeat.
But that what you just said is what I try to do too, is remember where I was a year ago. So don't forget to look back and look at all the accomplishments that you had. And even though you may want to get into this show and that expectation is there, you have to look at everything you did to get there and all
Yeah.
those accomplishments. And I think that's our biggest advice to all of us out there that are just starting and getting our names out and trying to get customers, and that we have to remember where we were. Like, I just started my website a year ago. So I've only been really officially official for a year. Like, and you started a year
I
ago
think
or
our
2 years.
website was about a year ago too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something like
Yeah.
that. So
So if you look at all those things that you've accomplished, the expectation that you have for yourself, you gotta let that go because you've done so much to get where you are now. So yes, if you get in, which we want you to get in for sure,
of course.
but if for some reasons you don't, you have to look at it as, I set up my booth, I figured that part out. I bought my panels, even though they're not the pricey panels. They're like my booth. Like, I already am planning to change my booth around. Like, once you and all those pictures that you've seen, those are people that do show after show after
Yes.
show.
Yes.
And
And
they
you're
have it
comparing
down.
yourself to that,
Right,
right?
right. And
Yeah.
they have it
Yeah.
down to a science. So you have to look at the fact that you've never done a booth before. So that's the positive. So we just have to remember, and I know it's easier said than done, but Allie said sometimes we have to try to know if that's the path we want to take at the moment. which is
That's
also
another
true.
whole subject that we could talk
Yes.
about for sure. Yeah, because how many conversations, Jeanette, have you and I had just
Right.
since we've met in the media class that we were in? So we were in that class and then we were going down this path with that. And it was like, wait a minute, I don't even want that. Like why am I putting all this energy into something that I don't want? And Allie, I know for a fact that I don't want to do art fairs all the time, right?
Right.
I just don't. I spent my previous career gone at nights and weekends all the time. I never got to see my husband. Now I'm at a point in life where this is what I'm doing to bide my time until I can see him, right? So I can hang out with him and have, it's not I take it seriously, but I don't want to be at an art fair every single weekend. Like I see people on this circuit that they do, right? So yeah, I don't want to spend thousands of dollars on pro panels when I know that's not actually the path that I want to be on. And Jeanette, you are still deciding if that is something that you want to do. You're going to make that decision. I think you said you're going to do the second one at this fair you're at now. You're going to do at
Yeah.
least one more in a fine art fair and then see
Yeah.
if that's where you want to be, right?
Right, exactly. So the one I have on December 10th is another small like arts and crafts fair. So I'm going to do that one because I committed to two, but I want to try a fine art fair where it's just people selling their art, their paintings, their fine art, not necessarily the crafts. And if I can find a show like that, try that, then that'll give me a good gauge on if that's something I want to do. And maybe I do, maybe like one or two a year, but I have to try
Mm-hmm.
it and see. And it is a lot of physical work,
It
Ellie said
is.
as well. So it's like we set the expectations or we set the goal that we want to be in this show, right? But then if your expectations are too high, obviously the expectation is that you get in. But like you said, unless you go through the process and learn how to do it, you're not going to know if you're going to want to continue or do it again. Maybe you do get in and you go and you have a miserable time. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But,
Right.
maybe people aren't
Sure.
nice or whatever. And again, anything that takes our joy, which is both you and I's goal, is this is to do because we've already had the careers that have stressed us out and we don't want to do something that brings us joy is what we want to do. And we don't want to have that poisoned or tainted. And there are going to be things that we have to do that we don't like, but we know the ultimate goal is that nothing else does the same for us. Bringing this
Yes.
art in and doing art, nothing else brings that same feeling.
Right.
Oh, and Amy
Right.
says, I think more than anything, doing a fair or show helps you produce more work. Ah, good one.
And
Just
just make
makes
sure it's the work that you love. And that goes back to what I was saying of in fact, there were a couple of pieces that I did. One is large. It's like a 60 by 48 by 60 or something. And I actually hung it up. And the whole time I just kept pushing it and I just couldn't get it to where I liked it. And finally I just took it off the wall of the booth because I was like, I don't love it and I don't want to I just don't want to take up space with something that I don't love. I'd rather put in what I love. And if the jury doesn't like what I'm making, they're not
right,
my people. And
right,
next year I'll just try again because it'll be a different jury. And, those types of things are very subjective as well. You're putting your art into these people that are judging it. And, maybe you're not their cup of tea, but you know what? People are still buying my art. And so it's a
right.
cup of tea for somebody,
Yeah,
right?
right. And like
So,
Amy says, so you think of it like the positive is that you built up your inventory. You
yeah,
worked on art that you wouldn't have worked on had you not have that goal or that point that you wanted to be in and put in a booth. So you figured out how much art you want to put in your booth, what it looks like, how many pieces you would need to make it look the way you want it to look. So all of that is all learning. And I think
yes,
it's all positive, right? So we have to take the expectations out and look at the process, just like with doing our art and not make it about the end result, I think. I mean,
right.
yes, you're going to have financial goals. Yes, you're going to have those kinds of goals, but that's different, I think.
Right, because well, yeah, those are separate from the creative goals, but in all fairness, I mean, that is, that puts another financial goals put a whole other spin on setting expectations. And, you know, when you have to paint in order to pay your bills, then I think that some of the, especially if you're an established artist and you have a style that that sells really well and you can just make a million of them and pump them out, that's different. But when you're still honing your style and you're changing, I don't want to be in the same style all the time. I like creating different things. I lost where I was going with that, but basically I was like, I just started thinking about, I like painting what I want to paint, and that's just what I'm going to do. My rebel just went off in my brain right there, and I lost my train of thought.
Oh my God,
You're not
that's
going to
awesome.
tell me what to paint, okay?
No. Well, no, because like I said, we've been there, done that. We don't want people telling us anymore. We
Yeah,
got to do
no,
it
for
for
sure.
yeah. And I think if it means something to you, it's going to mean something to somebody else. And
Yes.
the whole reason why we do these things and put ourselves out there is so that more people have the opportunity to see what we're offering out
Yes,
there. And then
absolutely.
Allie said, I got turned down for an art fair in Brooklyn. I was a little bummed, but I know my people and that other people like my art. Yeah, totally, Allie. You are on it. Like you do so
Yeah.
much.
100%, but
Yeah.
it is hard to swallow that. I got turned down for a couple of things recently as well. My first things that I put out there, and yeah, of course, I went into it going, oh, I don't care, but there's always that tiny little
Yeah.
piece of you that does care, you
Right.
know, and you do. I mean, obviously, you want it because you wouldn't have tried, but
Right.
bringing it full circle around to like, okay, so how do we manage those expectations? How do we manage the feelings that we have around going for these goals that we set for ourselves? Is I
Okay.
think that having starting with the right intention of, you know, what do I want out of this, and then managing as you go through it, having, I think, setting up checkpoints for ourselves as artists, you know, a quarter of the way through, halfway through, three-quarters of the way through, and then at the end, and checking in with ourselves just to remember to have something that triggers us to remember to check in and go, how am I feeling about what I'm making? Am I feeling happy, or am I feeling stressed? Am I feeling joy, or am I feeling pressure? You know, and then being able to take a step back and go, okay, if I'm feeling pressure, what can I do right now to relieve that pressure so that I can go back to being in that, for me, that space of, and I know for you too, that space of joy.
Yeah.
So,
And the energy around it, because I do believe that when you're creating, whatever energy your state you're in, and when you're creating, comes through the art as well. So you want to
it
keep
really
always keep
does.
that energy. I believe it's true, and it shows with whatever you're putting
And
on the canvas.
And it may not show to an outsider looking at it. Somebody may still love whatever you made. But like for me, when I was standing, I had somebody, my neighbor came, and she, super supportive. I have the best neighbors, best friends. And she was like, oh, I love that one. But inside of me, I knew the turmoil. There was no joy when I was painting it because I was trying to make it something. I didn't know what I was trying to make it, but I was trying to make it
Trying
something.
too hard, right? You have that
Yes,
expectation. Yep.
yes. And
Yep.
so that painting, when I look at it, it represents not joy to me. And I don't want to put that out into the world. I'd rather paint over it and feel good about what I'm doing. So that kind of goes in with what you were just saying.
Yeah, and then when to add to what your check-ins are is to look again at where you were a year ago, and
Yes.
and to help reset your mind that you've accomplished all these things, and you have to be positive about the things that you have accomplished and be happy with
I'm
that.
writing notes. So, one, we have to have checkpoints.
Yep.
And then two, we have to remember where we came from.
Yep. Set your goal, your ultimate goal, which is creating and bringing joy into your life and to others as well. That's why we're doing the art in the first place.
Yep.
And that feeling that we get when we're creating, that's the whole reason for doing it.
I know. I know. You know, when I this is something that I felt this last time, which I haven't really felt before, and I couldn't put my finger on it until just this moment, but I felt fear when I was painting some of my paintings. Fear of like it's not going to be good enough. And when I'm painting just for myself because I'm just trying out ideas or seeing what would happen if I do this, hey, I'm going to add this color. What would happen? And then it doesn't matter if it messes it up because and I did do that with one of my big paintings and it totally messed it up. Remember we talked on, what day was it last week? And I said, I'm going to add black to this
Yeah.
painting because I feel like it doesn't have enough depth. And
value.
and I never got back to you that day, remember? Well, that's
Yeah.
because it totally messed it up. And then I had to, it was a mess. And then I was like, and then I felt fear because I was like, I need this big painting because I need it to take up the space in my booth and it's not going to be done in time. Now
Okay.
I've messed it up. And so then I
Yeah.
had to go down this whole row, 2 days of changing it. And I did end up actually loving it now that it's finished.
Okay,
But
that's that ugly stage that we talked about before, that middle stage of where you hate it and you think, oh God, this is awful. But if you keep going, it'll end there. But you got to go through those cycles. So I guess
you do.
that expectations that we put on ourselves, we just have to remember all those things we talked about. Remember where you've been. Remember to check in with yourself. Remember why you're doing it to start with. Remember that this is for the joy that it brings you. And if we could kind of check ourselves, it's really, mental stuff is so hard. I'm just gonna say that.
I mean, it is, after being in so many different groups and hearing people share and following people and stuff. I mean, and even in my previous career, it is the number one thing that holds people back is our mental state, and if we can rein that in and get control over it and set up these boundaries, parameters, checkpoints, doing all these things in the beginning before we get started, it helps to keep that all in check and not
compare to ourselves
or let it get out of control, because once you start comparing, once your feelings and your mind get out of control, we stop creating, right? We just go, you know what, I'm going to walk away for a little while and I go watch TV or I go start reading a book or scrolling Instagram or whatever. And then it takes you a while to
I text you.
Yeah. And it does help to have a partner. I mean, that is, I think, another thing that we need to put on here. Number 3 is have a partner.
Or have other artists that you could talk to. I think I mean, that's how we met. That's how we started this. That's why we're doing these IG lives, is to, talk about the things that we're discovering as emerging artists, that other artists that seem so established and have, big followings, they don't have to worry about anymore. And that's, for us doing these IG lives is to share with all of us that are kind of at the beginning stages. And I think it's important to talk to other artists. I think we're such a good community and we help each other. And I think, you could admire other artists, like you said, that are only showing the best of the best on their Instagram feeds or their, and yes, they've probably been doing it a lot longer. You don't know their backstory. You don't know how long they've been doing it. You don't know how much money they've spent to get where they are. You don't know any of that stuff. So it's the expectations we have to regulate. We have to regulate our comparison. And if we could do all that and talk to each other, and I'm going to text Terry. Don't make it
100%. Yes, absolutely. And that's what I meant by a partner, like not necessarily like not necessarily that you guys are like running your business together, but you've partnered together in like trying to get through the mental daily stuff of creating because it is a lot. And I think that people outside of it that just look at the end result and the beauty, they just will never really know everything that goes into creating. And it's a fun, awesome ride. It's incredible.
It is. Yeah. And Allie says it's always comforting to be part of a community and sharing the same feelings. And absolutely. Yes, Allie, we loved when you were on our show too. We had such a good time with you, and it's fun to talk to you and see all that you're doing as well. Yeah. It's just fun. Yeah. And that could be inspiration in a good way instead of comparison, like being inspired by other artists.
Yes. So, absolutely.
Well, good. I'm excited.
I think we hit it all.
Yeah, I think we hit it out, and I'm glad that you're feeling good about when are you going to hear about whether you're in the show?
They said they'll let us know by November 29th.
Okay,
So,
so after Thanksgiving, we'll keep
yeah,
our fingers crossed.
absolutely. Yep, yep. So we'll see. I mean, it'll be whatever it's going to be. I feel confident. I did the best that I can. That's all I can do.
Right,
And I accomplished a lot that I didn't ever even know I would do. So I feel
right.
good about it.
See,
I feel really
see,
good about it. Yeah.
exactly. And you have more inventory, and you're able to do the next thing that comes up, if that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm taking a break right now. I'm gonna post. I'm behind, obviously in posting, but I took a picture when I got done. I sent it to you of like what my house looked like after doing this for 3 weeks and setting it. I had just boxes and stuff stacked everywhere. So I've been taking a break from painting and just getting my house back organized and tying up loose ends. And I feel really, really good about that because I kind of got stressed out about just I didn't have enough time to do everything. So some things
Right,
had to slide.
right.
So I'm taking a break. I know you're gearing up. So
Yeah,
yeah, because you have something coming.
yeah. So I have that little art fair coming. So I've been, first time I'm doing little ornaments.
They're so
So
cute.
they're little ornaments. Here's a little seascape one. So these are I'm gonna bring, so I'm doing these for the art fair, but I'm gonna offer them just to my email list as well. So, and they're really priced well. They're only gonna be $20 a piece, so they're pretty inexpensive. But it was
Fabulous.
something for me to give that lower price point for the art fair. So I'm gonna offer to my email list, and then anything that doesn't sell is what I'm bringing to the art fair with me, and that's on December 10th. And then once that art is over, I'm good, and I can then I have one commission that I am doing, a commission, and I'm going to start that after the December 10th art fair.
Yay.
And then I got good things that I'm thinking about for next year, but I'll
For the
talk to you
new
about
year.
those. Yeah, I'll talk to you
Okay.
about those later. But
Okay, before we
anyways,
go, I
yes.
want to share what we're going to do next time for our Insta Live.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
can
yeah,
I
yeah.
share? Okay,
Yes, yes.
so we are I can't talk. I'm so excited. We are working on loosening up our art and doing a little bit more abstractness to what we are creating. And so one of the ways that we're going to try to let go a little bit is every time before we do a live, we practice. Like we don't really, it's not practice, but we go over like what we're going to talk about. We talk about it, and then we go live we do that Monday, we go live on Wednesday. So I had a suggestion to maybe this next time we won't practice it. Like we'll just come on spontaneously and we won't know what we're going to talk about and we'll just talk and we'll get used to that feeling of letting go of control, because isn't that what we need to do in order to um,
Yes.
to be able to be more free in our art. So Allie, since you're on here and you've been commenting, I think Amy had to go, I saw a few minutes ago. So Allie, I want you, if you'll take on the challenge, how about if when we go live that morning, you tell us you give us a subject that we talk about.
Okay. Yay.
She said
I
fun
love
growth.
it.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so
I'm
that,
already feeling a little nervous about it, but we're
yeah,
going to
me
do
too.
fine. We're going
Me
to do
too. So that
fine.
is the Wednesday after Thanksgiving. So not
Okay.
next week, but the week after. I think it's the 30th, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
The 30th. Okay,
So,
Allie, we'll be,
okay.
we'll
Okay.
be.
She said, okay. All right. Awesome. So you think of an idea for us, and then we'll come on and you tell us what it is, and then we'll just go and we're going
And
to
it's just
see.
going to be crazy.
Yeah, and we're just going to get used to that feeling of letting go, of not being in control for just 30 minutes.
Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. Okay, guys. Well, that was awesome. We'll put the replay up, and if you want to watch it again or have somebody else watch it, if we talked about what you're interested in right now, that's awesome. And we'll have the replays up on our sites, and they'll be in our highlight reels. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming, and thanks for listening in. I
Have
love
a
it.
happy Thanksgiving for
Yes.
those of you celebrating next week, and eat lots of great food. And then we will see you on the 30th.
Yeah, and be grateful for everything that you've accomplished so far this year.
Absolutely.
Bye, fellow artists. Love you
Bye.
guys. Bye. Bye, Miss Tara.